Hey everyone, I'm Moran, and today we're going to trace what might be the single most important story ever told. We're talking about one unbroken narrative thread that starts at the dawn of creation and takes us all the way to an empty tomb. And believe me, this isn't just some ancient tale. It's our story. It's your story, in a way you might not expect.
This quote really gets to the heart of it. This isn't just a history lesson. It's about the very blueprint of who we are. It's about how we were designed, how things went so wrong, why we all have this deep, nagging feeling that something is missing, and the incredible story of a rescue mission that changes everything. So let's dive in.
So where does it all begin? Well, the human story doesn't start with a big bang or some cosmic struggle for survival. No, it starts as a masterpiece. It begins in a place of perfect communion, of total connection. Think about the Garden of Eden. It's described as a place of absolute harmony, where God himself would literally walk with people, side by side.
And right at the core of this whole design is this incredible idea called the imago Dei. It's Latin for image of God. But what does that even mean for us, right? Well, it means you. You were created to be a living, breathing reflection of God's own character, his love, his creativity. Our original purpose wasn't to struggle and strive. It was simply to be with him, reflecting his goodness into the world.
And this is where it gets kind of mind-blowing. In that perfect beginning, there was no religion. Think about that for a second. Why not? Well, religion is what we build to try and get to God, to bridge some kind of gap between us and him. But back then, there was no gap. It was just perfect, direct, face-to-face communion. Can you even imagine that?
But, well, we all know the story doesn't stay there, does it? That perfect connection was broken. And the reason is actually found in the nature of love itself. See, real love can't be programmed like a robot. It has to be a choice. And so, a choice was put on the table.
God wasn't looking for puppets, right? Not just robots doing what they're told. He wanted a real, genuine relationship built on willing devotion. And for that to happen, there had to be an option to say no. The choice to trust and love him had to be a free one. And that's why that one tree, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, was so important.
So what happened next wasn't just, eating a piece of fruit. It was so much bigger than that. It was an act of cosmic treason, and it happened in 3 steps. First, the deception. The serpent doesn't just lie, he attacks who God is. Then the choice. Humanity says, we want to be our own gods. And the consequence? Boom. Everything shattered. The lights went out.
And the fallout was just catastrophic, instantly. Theologians call it spiritual death. But what does that feel like? Well, for the very first time, humanity felt guilt, shame, that deep-down feeling of being broken. The mirror of God's image in us was cracked. And suddenly, there was this massive, infinite canyon between us and God. We were exiled.
So, now what? You've been exiled from perfection. What do? Well, you could argue that all of human history, from that moment on, has been this one massive, frantic search to get back to the garden, to build our own little versions of Eden, but this time without God.
The philosopher Blaise Pascal just hit the nail on the head here. He talked about this God-shaped vacuum in every human heart. It's like we don't consciously remember Eden, but our souls do. There's this echo, this emptiness that we are all desperately, constantly trying to fill.
And man, have we tried to fill it. Just look at history. We build empires, we chase money, we write philosophies, we create breathtaking art. And what about us today? It's the same search, just with different tools. We scroll, we binge, we chase that next promotion, the next relationship. All of it is an attempt to fill that hole. But does it ever really work?
And here's the fundamental tragedy of it all. We have a spiritual problem, an infinite problem, and we keep throwing finite solutions at it. It's like trying to put out a forest fire with a water pistol. You're just going to end up tired, and the fire's still raging. We were completely lost, but the story isn't over.
Okay, because if the story stopped right there, it would be the bleakest tale ever told. But it doesn't. This is the pivot. The moment the entire narrative flips on its head. This is where grace, this wild, unexpected, incomprehensible grace, just explodes onto the scene.
Let's just be crystal clear about the problem. That chasm between us and God, it was infinite. We couldn't build a bridge. We couldn't climb down and back up. There was literally nothing we could do on our own. We were stuck.
So, what happened? In an act of mercy that should just shatter our categories,
God did for us what we could never, ever do for ourselves. He didn't sit back and say, "Figure it out." No, he reached down, he crossed the chasm for us. And this is it. This is the climax of all of human history, the incarnation. The eternal Son of God became one of us. There's this fancy theological word, kenosis, which basically means he emptied himself of his glory and stepped into our mess. In Jesus, God lived the perfect life of trust that humanity was always meant to live but failed to.
But he didn't just come to be a good example. He came for a mission. On that cross, the greatest exchange in history took place. Jesus, who was perfect, took all of our sin, our shame, our rebellion onto himself. He paid a debt we couldn't even begin to comprehend. And in that moment, the barrier between us and God was obliterated.
But wait, the story can't end with a death on a cross. That looks like a defeat. It wasn't. The cross was the battlefield. The tomb was where the victory was declared. This is where the triumph comes in. Because 3 days later, that tomb was empty. And let me tell you, the resurrection of Jesus isn't just some historical footnote. It is the absolute bedrock of all Christian hope. It's the proof that death does not get the last word. By walking out of that grave, Jesus proved that his sacrifice was accepted, that sin was defeated, and that death itself was broken.
So look at how this all wraps up. It's this incredible sequence. The cross pays the debt. The resurrection defeats death. Then the ascension. This is where Jesus brings our humanity, our nature, back into the very presence of God. And finally, the promise is fulfilled. The Holy Spirit is sent to live in us, restoring that very communion we lost way back in the garden.
So when you step back and look at the whole thing, what is it? It's the story of the great return. We tried to go it alone, and it led to nothing but pain. But God, in his incredible love, didn't leave us there. He built the way back. The exile is over. The invitation to come home has been sent. And that leaves us right here with this one final personal question. The way home is open. The bridge is there. God has done everything. So the only question left for you, for me, for all of us, is simply this: will you cross it?